Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I am Auron MacIntyre. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that one of the ways we keep our lights on here is, of course, subscriptions to Blaze TV. So if you would like to support what we're doing on the show, as well as getting access to all your favorite Blaze TV hosts and all the behind the scenes features, you need to head to blazetv.com/Auron and you can get $20 off your subscription today. That's blazetv.com/Auron to get $20 off your subscription today. Hey, everybody. So it's another day of way too much news. Again, praying for a slow news day, but that day is not coming. Of course, we have the bombshell revelation that over 270 undercover federal agents were at January 6th. We'll talk about the implications of that, which are absolutely massive. We'll also look at further leftist violence against ICE agents and why the United States government doesn't seem to be taking very much action on that. We will talk about the indictment of James Comey. We finally got action in that area of the Trump administration, at least. And we'll talk about the memorandum that was passed by the president that outlines a plan for going after leftist extremism. We will talk about that as well. And finally, I want to address the issue of the monopoly on violence. This is a critical aspect of basically all states, is that they and they alone decide when and how violence will be applied inside their territory. And when you lose that, very critical consequences flow from it. So if we are in a state where we no longer have that monopoly on violence, then we have to wonder, are we in a state at all? I'll address all of this, but before I do, let's hear from today's sponsor. You know, we spend a lot of time here talking about what's going on in culture and politics, the battles, the noise, the craziness. But here's something different. If you're a woman listening right now, or if there's a woman in your life that you care about, you need to hear this. It's called Share the Arrows, and it's happening on October 11th in Dallas, Texas. It's hosted by Blaze TV's own Allie Beth Stuckey, and it's designed to encourage, equip, and speak truth into the lives of women who are trying to stand firm in this world. This is a day full of worship, teaching, and real conversations. So if you're a woman who's been craving encouragement and biblical truth, this is for you. And if you're a husband or a dad or a brother listening, think about your wife, daughter, or sister who needs this. In a culture that's constantly pulling in the wrong direction, this is a chance to stop, reset, and get grounded in biblical truth. Tickets and details are at sharethearrows.com. And yes, VIP options are still available. That's sharethearrows.com. All right. So like I said, we have had for a long time many people on the right who have looked at the events of January 6th and said, this is very suspicious. Not that there wouldn't be people who would protest everything that happened around the election, all of the irregularities, everything that we look at and think of as suspect. But ultimately, there's always been this idea that there's another step involved, that perhaps there had been coercion, there had been some level of spurring the crowd towards taking actions that would ultimately look bad for the right, that would drive the ability of the government to punish their enemies. And a key element of the people who have laid out this theory was the amount of federal involvement in the crowd. Now, up to this moment, we've never known how many there has been. There's always been speculation. The FBI has been very evasive about its presence on that day, especially and importantly, its undercover presence, right? The labeled FBI agents aren't a problem. Everybody knows who they are. If they start trying to change what was going on in the crowd or encourage violence or something else, it would have been very clear that the FBI agent with a shield, with a windbreaker, with a hat, they are obviously not someone you want to follow in doing these things. But of course, the undercover plainclothes agents, you don't know. You don't know if they are part of the crowd, if they're a legitimate Trump fan, if they are someone who is, maybe working to try to get the crowd to take actions that otherwise wouldn't. And, in the minds of people who thought that there was a deeper conspiracy here, a conspiracy theorist, some people would call them at this point. I think it's just people who are asking reasonable questions. In the minds of the conspiracy theorists, the number was never this high. Like even the most out there radical estimations of how involved the FBI was in pushing this and manipulating this crowd, they never would have guessed that we were looking at about 275 federal agents. Now, I want to put that in perspective for people because you might not understand how large of a number that really is. The average FBI field office is about 220 to 240 people. Some of them, like a New York City one, is going to be much larger, but the average field office is about in that range, 220 to 240. 275 means we had more than a full FBI field office already undercover in the crowd during this event. An entire field office plus another like 50 guys were undercover, not even at the event. There are far more FBI agents at the event. That's just the number of undercover agents that were embedded into the crowd. Okay. On top of that, we have at least another 26 FBI informants, several of which ended up inside the Capitol during January 6th. That means in total, we have over 300 government agents or informants embedded in plain clothes, not in uniforms that would designate them as FBI agents, but acting as if they are normal citizens during this rally. We have 300 plus federal representatives there who could easily manipulate the crowd because they are not marked as agents. We don't know. We don't know who was involved, which of the people who are clearly encouraging, in many cases where MAGA protesters said, don't go in, don't go in. We have other guys rushing up and saying, no, go into the Capitol now, or saying, hey, that guy, he broke this window that allows us to go in. Let's all go, right? Misdirecting the crowd. Are they FBI agents? We don't know. We still don't know. But what we do know is there is a massive amount of people in this crowd who are federal agents, who are not identified as federal agents and could have steered the behavior of the crowd at any time. Now, again, it's all speculation because we didn't know, right? I don't have direct evidence that the FBI manipulated the crowd and sent them in on January 6th. But to say that we are now approaching a critical mass of evidence that something very strange was occurring, well, that was many, many years ago at this point, but we are very much there now. I think it is now entirely reasonable to ask questions like, did the FBI or the wider federal government manufacture the events around January 6th? Again, I don't know for sure, and neither do you, and neither does anyone else who's telling you they do. But what we do know for sure is that you don't embed an entire field office worth of FBI agents undercover unless you probably plan to use that undercover officer. Undercover officers are there to infiltrate. They're there to manipulate. That's what undercover FBI officers do. They join other organizations, criminal organizations often, but organizations that they want to be criminal. They will join them and then try to steer their behavior one way or another. This is a classic tactic from the FBI. So the fact that you put 300 plus people, either agents or informants, into the crowd, many of which ended up inside the Capitol, well, that leads me to believe that you had some intention of steering the crowd's behavior. And since we've seen very suspicious events that allowed the crowd in, that encouraged the crowd to go in, that lied about other people and what they did when they were enabling the crowd to go in, to blame it on someone else, to misdirect, you have to have questions. You would be an idiot to believe the official narrative at this point. Now, again, I don't want to say that every event was driven by the FBI. I'm sure there were people who were there who ultimately did want to use violence at some level or did want to enter the Capitol at some level. But let's be clear, probably the 300 plus federal agents who were trying to manipulate and guide the crowd, that probably had an impact. So this is a huge revelation. It validates many of the conspiracy theories that we have. Yet again, it's the difference between a mainstream media headline and a right-wing conspiracy theory is generally just a few months. And so we can see yet again that a lot of this is being validated, and a lot of people, I think, have very legitimate questions about where this is going. Now, this is a much wider problem, right? Because currently we have an issue where it feels like, at least, the FBI is not doing its job. We have multiple multiple attacks on ICE agents. We have terror attacks on ICE agents. We have the murder of Charlie Kirk. We have a string of leftist terror attacks that seem to have gone more or less unanswered by the FBI. And so your question becomes, what's going on here? The FBI is able to infiltrate all of these organizations on the right. They're able to send agents, over 270 plainclothes agents, to infiltrate in during a protest, another 26 informants in a protest. They had the ability to do all of this, but we can't get a few guys at Antifa cells. What's going on, right? We had after January 6th, there were arrests almost immediately, and about 8 days after, there was a massive arrest wave, hundreds of people, right? 8 days after. It's now been over 2 weeks since Charlie Kirk was shot and killed, and we've got nothing. So it's not that the FBI can't do this stuff. It's not that they haven't done this stuff before. So what's going on? What is happening? Okay, so a couple things we want to look at. First, some people have asked, why isn't the FBI taking any action? Well, here's a good question for you. Why isn't the FBI taking any action? Can you figure out why Antifa isn't, feeling a lot of pressure from the FBI? Can you put together perhaps why the FBI is not really pursuing trans terrorists? Can anyone do the strange math on that one? So I'm worried. And here's the reason why. A number of people, myself included, but guys like Jesse Kelly, Sean Davis from the Federalists, others, said the FBI needs to be ripped to the ground. The entire organization needs to be demolished because it is too left-wing. It is an enemy of the American people, right? It is very clearly an enemy of the American people that exists to destroy the right, destroy conservatives, okay? And we weren't listened to. Instead, they're like, we're going to put Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at the head of the FBI. And I like Dan Bongino, to be clear. He's a guy who's very kind to me early on when he didn't need to be in this industry. I have no personal beef with Dan Bongino at all. But these guys were handed a monumental task because basically the FBI was just a Praetorian Guard for the Democratic Party. And that doesn't magically disappear because you put Kash Patel and Dan Bongino in the top of these positions. You still have an entire FBI full of people who hate you, hate your parents, hate your God, hate your way of life, hate your politics, and probably agree that ultimately you'd be better off like Charlie Kirk. Like, that's what the FBI consisted of before these guys took office. And so when they took office, I'm sure that they tossed out some of the worst actors and everything. But ultimately, there are still a lot of people in the FBI who agree with this stuff more than they do with the Trump administration. And so when you tell them, hey, you better find all those Antifa people you agree with and round them up, maybe they just don't. Maybe they lose some files here or there. Maybe they don't quite get to the place they're supposed to when they're supposed to. Maybe they forget to make a few phone calls. Just slow walk the whole thing, right? Like, what you need here is really an untouchables situation. Where the mob has bought all of the law enforcement, and you need your own separate law enforcement that you can trust entirely because they are completely not corrupted. And unfortunately, the Trump administration didn't go that way. Instead, they tried to reform the institution as it existed. And right now, it's not looking great that the institution can do its job. Now, I want to talk about a few things that they are doing. I want to give the Trump administration some credit where it is due. They have finally indicted James Comey. It took forever, but they finally did it. I wasn't sure that they would, honestly. I wasn't sure if they had the courage to get this done. Now, indicting Comey is different than obviously convicting him, but they are finally making the effort, right? They actually put the charges out. And Comey is only one of many that need to be charged, but at least he is being charged. Maybe they're floating this as the trial balloon, an important one to say. So I am glad that ultimately you are seeing James Comey under indictment. That's important. That's a good first step. The other thing that the Trump administration did yesterday was to sign a memorandum that established a comprehensive strategy for investigating, disrupting, and dismantling all stages of organized political violence and domestic terrorism. So let's take a look here at that actual act. I brought up the text here. Let me share that with you 1 second. So here is the act itself. You can see it is the Countering Domestic Terrorism and Political Violence Act memorandum, and it lays out here at the beginning some of the evidence. The assassination of Charlie Kirk. We have the assassination of senior healthcare executive, attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh. We have the different riots in L.A., the immigration and ICE riots, the different assaults on ICE. It points out that these are not just lone attacks, that instead this is a larger network, right? This is a larger network of people who are funded, connected. They are working. There is a centralized, maybe not direct command structure, but there is a way that money and power and influence flows into these and makes sure that these riots happens, ensures. And I do appreciate here that they specifically called out that this has somehow been placed under the umbrella of anti-fascism, right? Which is of course a lie, but it is a organizing banner, and it is nice that they didn't trip over the language here. They didn't avoid pointing out that anti-fascism has been turned into this basically terrorist organizational structure. That's good. That means they're going to be more able to target it. Their previous executive order has already designated Antifa as a domestic terror organization. Now, technically, that EO does not carry weight of law itself, but they are now using that as a directive in this case to identify the enemy, what it is, what you're aiming for. And now they are laying out in the second section of this memorandum how they are going to go after it. They say that the National Joint Terrorism Task Force is going to be working on this, and they lay out the strategy. They say it's going to be investigating political violence, terrorism, or conspiracies against rights or violent deprivation of any citizen's rights. They'll also investigate the institutional and individual funders and officers and employees of these organizations that are responsible for, co-sponsor, or otherwise aid and abet the principal actors in engaging in criminal conduct. So we're getting a large-scale investigation, not just into the violent actors themselves, but into the funding, into the organizational apparatus, into the those that disseminate the information, non-government organizations, and American citizens residing abroad, or those with close ties to foreign governments, agents, citizens, and foundations, or influence networks engaged in the violations of the Foreign Agents Registry Act. So if there's any money laundering going in, if there's any outside NGO organization that's bringing in foreign money. And I think this is important, but I think what this should do ultimately is allow the president to declare Antifa a foreign terrorist organization as well, because domestic terrorist organization gives you no extra legal powers. Foreign terror networks operating here, foreign terror organizations, that does give you extra powers. Those are now basically like foreign agents operating in the United States. Clearly, this language is saying we are going after foreign funding, but if you have foreign funding, then what you have is a foreign network, right? By definition. And we know that even governments of places like Canada directly fund Antifa. It is a foreign terrorist organization in every sense of the word. It was not founded in the United States. It's not even primarily funded in the United States. It is in every way, shape, or form a foreign power. It is a foreign terror network, and we should be treating it as such. So good to see that acknowledgement on the money side, but let's make that declaration official so you get the extra powers that are tied to it. It says the Joint Terrorism Task Force will coordinate with other agencies, tells everybody to work with them. They're permitted to extend the law to request operational assistance from other law enforcement partners. So basically, it's just kind of outlining all the ways that this is going to go after the different aspects of this network. Now, I want to say again, I am glad that we are seeing this. This is overall a good development from the Trump administration. But unfortunately, this is the long ball. And I'm glad we have a long ball plan. That's what I wanted, for sure. I'm not complaining about that in the slightest. Again, positive development for the Trump administration. But while we are waiting for that to develop, and it could take weeks, months to get that done, violence is occurring now. Now, you might ask yourself, why do we need this memorandum and executive order to go after these leftist groups when the left was able to go after all the Jan 6 guys in like a week? Why the lag, right? And the answer is very clear. All of these organizations don't want to do this. The answer, I think, and they're probably not going to come out and say this, but I think they really should. The answer is Donald Trump does not have control of the executive branch, or at least he does not have total control of the executive branch. And that's why they have to constantly issue all these orders, hoping to build a legal case as to why their own employees have to work with them and do the work they're supposed to do. If you remember, there's Steven Crowder, right? There's this guy, Steven Crowder. I think you've probably heard of him. He's got a much larger show than mine. And at one point, he sent his assistant, Jared Moreau, also known as Not Gay Jared, he sent him into Antifa, right? Like they had him infiltrate an Antifa cell. And Jared was able to successfully infiltrate the Antifa cell, get information on what they were planning, what they were doing, what kind of violence they were going to use, who was involved, the members. He was able to bring that information to law enforcement. This is some comedian's second banana. Not to besmirch Not Gay Jared. Great guy. But like is a comedian's second banana. He's the straight man to a comedian, right? That's what his job is. Well, he's a gay man. You get the point. The point is, like, his job is to be the other guy in the room for a comedian to play off of. And he infiltrated Antifa rather easily. Like, Antifa is not some mastermind network. They're not even the mob, okay? These guys are sloppy. These guys are stupid. These guys are mean and vicious and violent and evil, but they're not exactly Moriarty, okay? These guys are the dregs of society. They can barely tie their shoes. It's not rocket science to get into these organizations, and yet the FBI can't seem to do what a comedian can do. These terrorist organizations are literally leaving flyers on college campuses with a QR code that tells you how to join and where to find them. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Okay, I get it. You have to build a case. I'm not expecting the RICO case to come down in a week. I'm not expecting the sweeping Soros funding shutdown in a week. I get that takes time. I'm fine with that taking time. I understand that. But why are we not destroying these people in the streets right now? They're doing violence in the streets right now. We know this. We know this. And the Trump administration just looks weak. It just looks really, really weak in this scenario, right? So let's take a look at some of the other things that we're seeing right now. Homeland Security says Secretary Noem sounded the alarm on ICE tracking apps months ago. Now those apps that paint a target on law enforcement helped to plan the attack on the Dallas field office. These apps and the media who's gleefully advertising them represent an existential threat to our agents. It's no different than giving a hitman the location to their intended target. Okay, so I have some questions. If you knew this app was an existential threat to federal officers, why is it still around? Like, understand that when Parler was fingered as some central aspect of January 6th, which it was not, this was all a lie, completely manufactured. But when this right-wing app that had existed for like, I don't know, a couple months at that point was pointed to as like the big nefarious thing that enabled January 6th, guess what? It was immediately shut down. It was pulled out of every app store. It was like the owners, their lives were destroyed, bank funds seized, debanked, completely destroyed end to end. And here we have the Department of Homeland Security saying, well, nothing we can really do. Like, please don't do that. It's mean. You're the government. You're the government. You can stop this. You can absolutely bring the power to bear. You can absolutely destroy the people who are putting these apps out there and informing on the location. If it's truly an existential threat, if these guys really are no different than ordering a hit on your agents, you're telling me you can't stop people from ordering hits on your agents? So you're just admitting you don't have control. You're admitting you do not have control of violence. You have lost the monopoly on violence in the United States. That's what you're saying. We can't stop the left from declaring where we are so they can murder us. That is what the Department of Homeland Security is saying openly. That's nuts. That's absolutely insane. And yet that's exactly what's happening here. That's what they're saying. And they think that just going out and wagging the finger at these people, trying to shame them is going to solve this problem. You have guys, you got guys like James Woods. James Woods loves, like Trump, he loves the right. He's big Republican guy, right? You have Jim Jordan here saying, well, when you defund the police, you get more crime. When you threaten ICE officers, you get more violence against them. Why won't Democrats support law enforcement? Like Jim Jordan is not a guy in power. Look, man, I tweet on the internet because that's all I can do. That's the extent of power I have. To the extent I have any other power, any other influence, it all came from my ability to type on this stupid website. That's what I'm good at. That's what people know me for. That's why they listen to me at all. I have no power beyond my ability to post. You are an elected representative of the United States. If there is any power involved in that position, you should use it. And if you don't have any, you should explain why. Okay? You should explain why. And at this point, James Woods just says, honest to God, stop talking already. Do something or shut up. Guys, if you've lost James Woods, if the admin has lost James Woods, there's a problem. Okay? like you have screwed up. Some of your most rabid supporters are looking at you and like, you look weak. You look weak. You look feckless. You look completely worthless to me. At this point, if the Republican Party just has no power, if it has no influence, if it has no ability to control the government, even after winning elections, it would just be more dignified to say so. Just come out and say it. Because I kind of believe it's true. I wrote a book about why it's probably true. So it's not like this just came to my mind. Like, we've been talking about this for years. Elections don't seem to change the course of the government. They matter some. I'm certainly glad that Trump is in power now as opposed to Kamala Harris. I'd probably be in jail if it was Kamala Harris. So it is a real thing that matters to me. But ultimately, does the Trump administration control the FBI? Because it looks like it doesn't. The FBI was more than capable of arresting Christian protesters, going after Trump administration officials, arresting J6 protesters in a very quick manner. Like in a week or two after the events, maximum. And the Trump administration is like, well, we're laying out a plan. Maybe a few weeks from now, you might get an arrest or two. Maybe. This is just unacceptable. Again, I am glad that they are laying out what they are going to do. I'm glad that they have a plan for going after the big funders, the international organizations, the influencers. All great. All great. But in the meantime, this can't happen. Okay, because here's what else is happening right now. Here's the other thing that is currently happening. So there was just an attack on another ICE facility. You had a large amount of rioters outside of a ICE facility in Chicago. They are, of course, blocking traffic. They're assaulting. They are slamming on the car. All of these things are illegal. Every one of these people can be arrested. Every one of them, and they should be. We've already declared these people domestic terrorists. That's already been done. So what does that mean? Does it mean anything? Does it mean anything? Now, I think they did eventually arrest some of them, which is great, but let's check this out. We have evidence here. Let's play. Let me see if we can get the...
Arrest guys! Arrest guys! Arrest guys! Shoot ICE! Shoot ICE! Shoot the fucker! Shoot the fucker!
So you hear it right there. That is a direct death threat to a federal officer's face. They're announcing, shoot them now. This is not arrest ICE, fine, whatever, right? Shoot ICE. Okay, now we're clearly, there's no First Amendment protections here. There's no need to be delicate. These people are terrorists who are threatening to murder our officers in cold blood on camera in front of everybody. And the left does not care. They are not afraid of these guys for a minute. The left is not afraid of the Trump administration. Terrorists are not afraid of the Trump administration because they're not doing anything. They have lost the monopoly on violence. Antifa thinks they own the streets because they do, because they are not being stopped, because there is no response by the federal government. What are we doing? Terrorists are in the street directly threatening to shoot and kill officers who have already been shot at. There's already been a direct terrorist attack on officers. Luckily, the shooter was so stupid, he shot the wrong people. Though still, those people didn't deserve to die by his bullet, probably, hopefully. I don't know. I don't know how bad a person they were. I don't know who ICE had detained that day. But either way, the only reason that we don't have more dead ICE agents is that leftists are such idiots. And here we have more leftists openly saying, we are going to kill you. We are going to shoot you right here. By the way, they found a weapon on one of these guys. He's detained now. He might actually even go to jail. Woohoo! We got one. What are we doing? This is insane. This is absolutely... Sorry, I know I'm just saying it's insane, it's crazy over again. I'm just running out of words to discuss what a complete, just drastic failure we are seeing here. I know the Trump administration is not in a great place. I know that this is not an enviable job. I get that they are probably fighting a battle with their own ranks. But I'd rather they just say that. I'd rather they just say, we don't control the FBI. The FBI is infiltrated. It's full of traitors. We have to, but at the same time, they got to respond to this, right? So they can't just blow up the FBI now. They should have done it the minute they took office. They should have had a new federal marshal program of some kind that was up and going and ready to take care of all this stuff. So when it happened, they had loyal people on their side. But since they didn't do that, they have to work with the FBI they have now, because there's no way they can dismantle federal law enforcement while they have to get rid of a terrorist organization on our soil. While these people are opening fire on federal agents and shouting that they intend to murder them without any care in the world. Because the left never pays a price. They just never pay a price. It never happens. So of course they can shout, I'm going to murder you in front of a federal officer. What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Nothing, right? Maybe finally they arrested a few of these people. But in general, these people do not fear the FBI. They do not fear ICE. They do not fear the Trump administration. Probably because a lot of the FBI is on their side. And the Trump administration isn't doing anything about it. All right. So other scenes we need to look at here. Refusal to get rid of the app. Let's see. Had one more. Oh, yes. So another, this scene here in Houston, Texas. Obviously, two white guys getting hung. Looks like they have what are supposed to be MAGA hats on, Mexican flag flying here. Now, I don't know about you, but I remember not so long ago when I think 15 or 20 or 30 FBI agents showed up to investigate one garage pull, one rope tied to a garage door at a NASCAR race. Right? One loop tied to a garage had a bunch of FBI agents out looking for who, this whole fake thing. None of it was real. No one was trying to kill any NASCAR drivers or anything. And yet we had the whole FBI out there. Now we have people literally hanging MAGA supporters in effigy with a foreign flag attached to it. Is anyone even going to get a knock on the door? At this point, I guess there's more important things to go after, but what are we doing here? Right? Again, we see that the FBI has the power to go after these people. It regularly goes after these people. It has no compunction that it with absolutely pursuing all of this stuff, and yet nothing happens. Now, another one, right? Another bad display by the Trump administration. So in their exchange at a New York courthouse, one woman was shoved by an ICE officer. Okay. Now the ICE officer is now he's been removed from his duties. He's on probation, because of this incident. Guess what? This woman was grappling with the ICE officer and had her hand where his gun is. Did she grab the gun entirely? I don't know. Was she removing the gun entirely? I don't know. Here's what I know for sure. When I was a reporter, a local reporter, I had to report on the death of a local police officer. And that police officer had encountered a man who was on drugs. Now, because we had just had yet another race riot in the United States, when he confronted this black man who's on drugs, he did not draw his weapon. And because he didn't draw his weapon, that man decided that he would grapple with a police officer, grab that man's weapon, and shot and killed him. So I had to report on his funeral, talk to his family who's mourning his death, because he was worried that somewhere someone might think he was a racist. So he didn't do his job and he got killed. When a person puts their hands on a law enforcement officer with a weapon, they are immediately in a situation where that law enforcement officer has to recognize that person could now kill me. I have a weapon on me. If they are reaching in the area where my weapon is, this is no longer a wrestling match. This is a gunfight. And so the best possible outcome from this woman was she got pushed away. If you try to grab an officer, especially where his gun is, the best outcome is you get shoved to the ground. The worst outcome is you get shot justifiably. This woman could have been shot, and I would not have really been like, oh, I don't understand how that happened. Actually, I understand exactly how that happens, because you now are in possession of a firearm once you have your hand that close to the officer's firearm. It is not that hard to get a hold of them. So he is totally justified in shoving this woman to the ground. And yet, the Trump administration says, we need to put this guy on probation. I understand that's probably procedure at some level, but it's also a terrible look. Because on January 6th, when someone shot and killed the unarmed Ashley Babbitt, the left called him a hero. They gave him a medal. They took him, they paraded him in front of the cameras. They honored him in Congress. Being on the left means you are protected. Being on the left means you are secure. The left will make sure you are protected. Your job is secure. Your income is secure. Your family is secure. Your banking is secure. The left protects its own. The right is full of cowards who throw their own under the bus. This man did nothing wrong and he is removed from duty. The man who shot Ashley Babbitt murdered her and he got a celebration. This is a disaster from top to bottom. Again, I do not envy the Trump administration right now. Many of these people knew Charlie Kirk personally. They were personal friends with him. They are grieving. They are facing a country that is at the boiling point. They are probably fighting a large amount of their own administration, their own executive branch while trying to do any of this. I have no doubt that there are a large number of complicating factors that are making this a very difficult situation for the Trump administration. And also, I don't care. You got to figure this out and you got to figure it out now. And if you don't have the power to solve the problem, please tell the American people that. I'm not even kidding. I'm really not. It would be more illustrative for the American people if they knew that their elections did not give the power necessary to the government to do its job. It would be scary. It would shake faith in the institutions. But if the institutions are this rotten, then they need to be shaken and probably cut down. If you have institutions that cannot do their job because they are so thoroughly infiltrated by leftists, they cannot protect the people of the United States, then they are worthless and they need to go. If you don't control them, tell us why. And if you do control them, then get the job done. This halfway of pretending like you have power and then doing nothing with the power is not acceptable. It's a disaster. And it makes people wonder, are we safe in the United States? And the answer is, frankly, no. The state is losing its monopoly on violence quickly, very quickly. And when that happens, private citizens will look to their own ways to protect themselves. It's just the case. This is how things get very, very, very bad very quickly. And we are staring over the corner of this precipice, okay? If the Trump administration cannot enforce the law, cannot stop people who are threatening to murder ICE agents after a terrorist attack where someone else attempted to murder ICE agents, then we're cooked. It's done. The country is over. Who are we kidding? There is no reason that the Trump administration can't shut down every college campus over violence. There just isn't. They were able to do it over anti-Israel protests. They were able to bring an immense amount of influence to bear on college presidents and their funding if they didn't stop protests against Israel. But we can't do that for terrorist organizations that are literally recruiting on those college campuses, who are hounding conservatives, shooting conservatives, assaulting conservatives, threatening conservatives on the college campus. You're telling me that we can't stop funding to universities that are doing nothing to protect conservatives, who are making it open season to murder conservatives? I don't believe you, because I've seen you do this. I've seen what the FBI can do. I've seen what even the Trump administration can do when it wants to. So let's do this. And if you can't do it, explain to me why. Because if you won't tell me why and you won't do it, then the only answers I have left are you are malicious or you are inept. And I don't want to believe either one of those things. I want to believe that there is still a political solution to these problems, that the legitimate authority in the United States can take action to protect me and mine. Because if they can't, well, then we have to make alternative arrangements, because the state cannot protect us. And I don't want to go down the route. I am begging the Trump administration not to give people a reason to go down that route, because that way gets very, very ugly very quickly. And it seems like they don't get it. It seems like they really don't understand. Either that or they just don't have the power to get it done. And again, if you don't have the power to get it done, just say so. Just come out and say it. I know it'll scare a lot of people. I don't care. Like, we have to rip the mask off this entirely fake apparatus if that's the case. And I got a feeling it's the case. So if that's where you're at, guys, just come out and say it. Just have Donald Trump come up and say, we have been pushing on FBI agents. They are refusing to follow orders. We are not in control of the government. There is a fifth column insurgency in the United States. The elections do not change that. Just say it. It'd be an ugly truth, but I think it's a pretty obvious truth at this point. And if that isn't the case, if there really isn't that, if that isn't the problem, you have total control of the FBI and the federal government, and none of that is the problem, well, that's even worse. Because that means you just can't be bothered to protect American citizens. Again, it took the Biden administration a week to roll up J6 protesters. I get it. It's going to take months to put together the Soros cases, to go after the NGOs, to shut down the wider funding networks. I'm going to give you time on that. I'm going to give you leniency on that. I understand that. But the street violence has to stop, and it has to stop now. We already had a Trump administration that did nothing as our cities burned. Did nothing. That did nothing after Trump was shot. Did nothing. We are enabling political violence from the left at this point. I want you to change my mind about that. I want you to show me that's not the case. But I'm sorry, I can't sit here and pretend everything is fine. That, just given enough time, the Trump administration has a handle. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good, guys. I'm going to praise you when you do good things. I'm glad you indicted Comey finally. I'm glad that we have a plan for how we're going after these organizations, and you laid that out for the American people. Those are both positive steps. But when I have major figures like Ted Cruz or major government officials in places like the Department of Homeland Security saying, please stop, we can't actually stop you, but please, it's bad. It's meanie pants. You're being a bad sport. That's not enough. Okay. The Republicans finally did something, by the way. They finally got around to something. They finally got around to announcing their big plan to mint a commemorative coin for Charlie Kirk. Now, look, I like the idea of honoring Charlie Kirk. In fact, I've made the case that, me and Jonathan Keeperman, he was on the show. We were making the case. We need a cultural remembrance of Charlie Kirk. It's not enough to just do the law enforcement stuff. We need the cultural stuff. So I'm not here to say, oh, don't honor him with a coin. I'm just saying we got about 1,000 priorities before this. You know what should have been the first thing that honored Charlie Kirk? Legislation that locked up every Antifa member. Legislation that closed the border. Legislation that ended foreign influence. Legislation that allowed for mass deportations. Legislation that did literally anything else. Okay? The Trump administration has received its funding for ICE. The plan going forward was to make this happen. That's why they were basically given a military branch style budget so they could get this done. They're not going to get it done if their officers are being shot. Okay? And I don't want to hear from the people of the Department of Homeland Security. Guess what their job is? To make the homeland secure. And they're whining that they can't do it because there's an internet app. What? Fix it. Who are you people? What's going on? Sorry, I'm very frustrated today, but I need someone to take this seriously. Like, the Trump administration needs to put on the big boy pants. It's time. Okay? Strongly worded letter conservatism is done. It's over. It's worthless. It should be in the trash bin of history. I need real solutions, which means you guys have to not care if people online or on the news or in the New York Times call you mean names. I don't care about mean names. I care about people being shot. And people are being shot. So let's do something. I know you can infiltrate Antifa. You sure as hell could infiltrate January 6th. I know you can arrest people in a week. You sure as hell did it with January 6th. I know you can get apps taken down and shut down if they are considered to be inciting violence. You already did it with January 6th. I know the government can do these things. I've seen them do it. So either you don't have the power, and that means our government is legitimate, just say so, or it means you do have the power, and you're too scared or inept to use it, in which case you are worthless to me. It can only be one of these two things. So let me know which one it is. Because right now, people are worried. I think very rightly so. I think that we need to see major action or things are going to continue to spiral out of control. They already have. I warned last week they were going to if we didn't see action. I was warning 2 weeks ago when Charlie Kirk was shot. If we don't have immediate action, things are going to spiral out of control. And guess what? I was right. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm saying it was obvious a 5-year-old could have seen this from outer space. Everyone knew what was going to happen if the Trump administration did nothing. And then it did nothing. And then everything happened. This is as clear as day. You let these people keep murdering people, they'll keep murdering people. And they are, because you're not doing anything. They're literally threatening to shoot federal agents to their face. They don't care. They're not scared of you. You're weak. You look weak. It's got to change. We don't have time for weakness. All right, guys, let's go to the questions of the people here. Wild Speaker says, so you're telling me that an organized minority manipulates a disorganized majority? You surely jest. Yeah, I know. It's not anything new. It's just seeing this in action and seeing that it doesn't seem to animate anyone is what the really terrifying thing is. Wild Speaker also says, what is the potential that the necessary personnel changes in the FBI could be enacted during a potential government shutdown? Yep, that's a good question. I don't know enough about the government shutdown and what it enables or doesn't. But obviously, there are many problems with recruiting and turning over a large amount of the FBI because there are all these regulations in place, right? This is the managerial capture. This is the managerial regime. Yes, you were elected. Yes, you put the most anti-leftist, White House in there forever, right? Like how no matter how bad you think the Trump administration has done or whatever at this point, remember, they are still miles better than any other Republican you have ever seen in office. Just period. That's it. That's the truth. Like, they're way better than George Bush. They're way better than Mitt Romney would have been. Way better, honestly, sorry, but they're probably way better than Ron DeSantis would have been. These guys are the most effective, and they are still unable to get past this. Why? Because the capture of the institutions is in its procedure. They have the manipulation of procedural outcomes, which makes it impossible for the right to make serious advances when they're in power, and makes it easy for the left to destroy all norms when they are in power. That's how it works. And so that fact makes it very difficult, because you not only do you have to recruit these people and train these people, they have to have legitimate credentials, they have to pass certain background checks, they have to go through all of the paperwork, everything involved, psych evals, the whole 9 yards. Then you have to put them in the field, right? Like it's a whole thing. It takes a while. And you have to do all of this because the FBI is already an organization with a large amount of different requirements built in, legal apparatus, everything. It's better to just tear it down and start again. But we didn't do that, and now we need the federal law enforcement. So now we're kind of stuck with it, right? That's the problem. Chan the Man says, Mug Club is the 4th intelligence agency. I mean, seriously, if not gay Jared can do the job of the FBI, can you just go get him? Have Jared Monroe training FBI officers. Great. I don't care. I don't care if comedians have to train my federal agents because they're that dumb. Fine. Just do it. Like, it can't be that hard. I'm sorry. I'm sure Jared is an extremely talented person, but he wasn't like, he wasn't exactly some kind of master spy here. He just was like kind of a thin guy, walked up, was like, hey, I hate like Republicans and Christians too. And they're like, here, have a knife. Here's where we get together to murder people. Like, it wasn't exactly that hard. These people are not that hard to bust. So just do it. Don't tell me you can't do it. You can. I've seen comedians do it. You can do it. Thirstworm says, called my rep and Ted Cruz, and both of their staffs just talked to me about Israel crap instead of anything in America. Losing my mind. That does seem to be, I mean, that's what Pam Bondi did, right? Like, when she's first asked about the shooting of Charlie Kirk, she's like, but what about the anti-Semitism on campuses? I don't know what to tell you, man. At this point, it's just, yeah. Tiny Stupid Demon says 21 chimp salute. Well, thank you very much, man. That's very cool. Thank you. This isn't even about chimping out. Like, I'm tired, man. People I know are dying. Like, I want the government to act as if it's, got a job, as if it has the monopoly on violence, as if, it can actually protect anyone who is in on the left in the United States. Florida Henry says, I'll keep saying it. Firsthand knowledge from 1994. This is at minimum a 30-year problem of incompetence. Being in these departments is like being in a cult. Like, most likely they just don't have the men. Again, I agree with you 100%. That's probably the case. They didn't get rid of the organization. They didn't like do a Manhattan Project in rebuilding it. So they're sitting here probably with a large number of people who don't want to do the job. And so the few who do are like probably like working overtime to overcome the negative influence inside these organizations. I get the monumental nature of the task in front of them. I wrote a book about the monumental task in front of them. I'm not discounting it, but here we are, man. Like, you were elected. This is the moment. Okay. So we can't really make the excuse. Yes, it's a multi-generational problem. Yes, the changes needed are drastic and severe, but if we don't do them, the left is just going to kill people, and they already are. So like, you got to figure it out. Sorry, you got to learn on the job here. We don't got 30 years to march back through these institutions. We need them now to stop terrorists. Zolti here with a very generous donation. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. He says, I'm getting tired of principled losers saying that actually it's wrong to use power to seek justice. Yeah, I think we're all pretty sick and tired of that at this point. In fact, at this point, I don't even know how those people exist. I don't think all 10 people that follow them, I guess, congratulations. But I just don't get it. They don't seem to have much influence even at this point. Even the guys who are running around yelling them, the only people who listen to them, I guess, are our politicians. Every average person, even every like political activist at this point that I know on the right is like, yeah, this is insane. We have to actually fix this. But, luckily, I guess our political class is entirely captured. Freelancer U says, I've asked you several times on X. Okay, so what's the plan? Because the government can't solve this. When we start protecting ourselves, it's time. So again, if you're coming on here and asking me to Fed post for you, that just won't happen, right? So here's what we can do. We can encourage the government to take action under the color of law. If the government is not going to take action under the code and law, then you should be buying a firearm. You should be training with it. You should be protecting yourself and your family against legitimate threats. You shouldn't be going out looking for trouble. You shouldn't go looking for vengeance, but you should be prepared at a drop of a hat to stand against violence in the United States, because unfortunately it seems like the government cannot. At the same time, you should be networking. You should be talking to people. You should be finding people of like mind, because if real things pop off, it won't be one-on-one, okay? So sitting at home, typing, saying, what do we do? Get out. Go talk to people. Meet with people who share your values, who are willing to also go train, right? Get together. Have range time. Talk to your buddies. Make that your hobby. That's what you need to be doing at this moment. Everything else is a Fed post, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that for you. Templar says, victims say, please stop. Victors simply stop it. Trump is revealing which he is. I mean, I ultimately hope that that's wrong, but if it continues this way, you will be right about that, right? It's enough of the please stop. Ted Cruz, please stop. Department of Homeland Security, please stop. No, stop them. You're the government. You're not some guy on Twitter. You're the government. You're not someone using social media. You're the government. This is your job. You have the power. Theod says, I'm antagonistic but have been drawn to Christianity. I'm interested in mainline Protestant and Catholicism, but should I read the Bible first? I'm in I'm sorry, I'm forgetting my state abbreviations. I'm assuming that's Washington, but plan on moving to Tennessee, so I don't know if I want to commit to a church yet. You should absolutely be reading the Bible. I would just advise that all around. The Word of God is what's going to lead you ultimately, I think, to Christ, but being in a believing body is critical. It's not just about reading the Bible. It's also about working these things out in your community, embodying them. Ultimately, I think that if you're going to move, then you should visit a church. You should worship, involve yourself as much as possible, but probably you shouldn't be looking for membership if you expect to move soon. But I would certainly attend a church. Very few churches are going to ultimately turn you away. In fact, I can't think of churches that are going to turn you away just because you're visiting, and it might be temporary. Most churches are very welcoming to that. So I really encourage you to, of course, be reading the Bible, be in the Word, and surround yourself with believers, not just by going to church, but make these people your friends. If you don't already have Christian friends, find Christian friends. Even if you're not a Christian yet, let them know, I'm interested. I want to know what's going on. C.S. Lewis ended up in a situation like this, right? You can do it too. And I think that if you are genuinely seeking the Lord, then he will draw him to you. So I really encourage you to stay in the Word and connect with other believers. Thirstworm says, we will need a primary and candidate harassment campaign beyond anything the Tea Party has at the convention and primaries. So yes, but, right? Like, yes, in theory, yes, you should throw out the bums. Yes, the primaries. Yes, the next election. How's that worked, guys? Like, when has that worked for anybody? Right? Like, I'm with you. If you know a good person in your area that can promote your values, who you think will fight for you, then by all means get involved, or be that person. Get involved in your politics, your local politics. But I'm sorry, man. I just don't know that you can change the GOP at this point, right? Like, or at least, maybe change is coming. Look, I know there are up and coming congressmen and senators in the GOP that I think do get it. There are a few. I've had one of them on my show recently. May not be 100% perfect, but they are much better than what came before. They are far closer to like a Pat Buchanan than they are to your average, Lindsey Graham or something. But I don't know. I don't know if we're just going to primary our way out of this problem. I don't know if we're going to be able to vote our way out of this problem. I hope we can. I really do. But in the meantime, train. Mark Haas of 588 says, the gross inaction of the administration has been terribly disappointing, and the sense of emotion is palatable, brother Auron. Keep up a good fight. Well, thank you, man. Like I said, I know I'm a little hot today, but I just, I'm having difficulty, man. I like it. I can't keep my mouth shut when this is going on. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not one of those people who's just going to oh, Trump, I'm done with Trump. He's betrayed the country every time I disagree with something, or I think it's not being done. I'm not that guy. Okay. But as I've said many times over, trust the plan, but chimp, right? Like that's kind of been the plan so far. But like when people are being killed, when federal officers are getting told that they're going to be shot to their face without hesitation, then like something drastic has to happen. That's all there is to it. Something drastic has to happen. Nibbler says if he doesn't take care about us, perhaps reminding him he will be impeached and imprisoned in 14 months will scare him into action. I think he knows that. I think Trump is aware of that at some level. Like I said, ultimately, I think the real answer is Trump doesn't have control of the government. Honestly, I think that's the real answer. I think he's probably doing what he can. But if that's the case, he should just come out and say it. I think honesty would just be better. And if not, if Trump really is just inept and he really just doesn't care, well, then yeah, obviously, like then he'll be impeached and deservedly so, if that's truly the case. But I don't think that's the case. I think ultimately he does. If I think he loves the country, to be honest, but even if he didn't, I think just self-preservation would lead him to take these actions if he could. So the fact that he's not taking them leads me to think he can't. I think that's kind of just it. The hallway bird says, save me, Auron. I want to trust the plan, but the black pillars look so tasty. Right wingers can't stop spiraling. Feds do nothing. I just want deportations. Again, man, I hear you. I don't want to be criticizing the Trump administration. I don't want to be saying, hey, I don't think you guys are doing your job. Like, I want to be cheering these guys on as they smash leftists one after another. That's what I want to be doing right now. I really do. I promise. Scout's honor. Like I have, like I have been accused both of being a black pillar and carrying water for the Trump administration. You're just going to catch it coming or going either way. All I'm trying to do is tell the truth, man. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm doing my best. Wild Speaker says, not gay, Jason Bourne reporting for duty. Actually, funny enough, Jared Monroe, I tweeted this out and he actually responded and said, all right, boss, put me in. So like, we do actually have him on our side if we need him. If the FBI needs him to infiltrate Antifa, we can do this, guys. Like, we can get you special agent, not gay Jared. We can do this. Tiny Rick says, it's our republic versus their democracy. Unfortunately, it's what's left of our republic, which is not much at this point. Freelancer U says, I'm not sure what the abbreviation said in his best about Jim Jordan. I'll protest when I'm not in office and promise to fight for you. When he gets in office, he acts like a weak punk. Ted all of them cowards or complicit pissants. Sorry, I couldn't quite decipher all of the abbreviations in there. But yeah, ultimately, it seems like a number of Republicans talk a great game. Of course, we look at people like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino saying, we're going to get you the Epstein files. We're going to get you the Epstein files. The Epstein files are definitely there. Epstein is definitely a foreign agent. Epstein is definitely a intelligence asset. All of this stuff. And then they get in the administration. It's like, well, maybe it's not real. I mean, not great, not good. Kind of my last problem at this moment, given everything else going on. But like, we remember when you guys promised all that stuff, and then you showed up in the White House, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, not an issue. Don't worry about it. Thirstworm says, we need a very loud and very present at the GOP convention, CPAC primaries, etc. Can't let them ignore us. The base needs to drag them. I mean, I agree. Again, I don't know if that will ultimately change things, but it can't hurt. It can't hurt for you to get active in those areas. Don't do it to the detriment of also organizing in your localities, training, taking care of yourself, being prepared. But yeah, if you can, get involved, man. And like I said, I think at this point, it's probably more important to be, involved locally. That I think that's probably the most important thing. But if you can make it to the national stuff, by all means do. Jacob Zendel says, how can the FBI replace radical leftists with patriots when the entire college credentialing system is owned by fear-loving Marxists? Again, I'm with you. Ultimately, I wrote a whole book about this, why the capturing of the managerial class is itself a huge problem, how the current credentialing of our institutions leads us again and again to this problem, how in the first Trump administration, they couldn't staff the administration because there were too many people who held basically priors that made them loyal to the system. This is a huge issue, and it requires basically a ripping out of these foundational institutions and them being rebuilt from the bottom. And the Trump administration did not do that. And now we need the institutions, and they're all crap. So, that's why you needed to do that. But here we are. Templar says, casual reminder that Charles Paul Minor III 1976 thesis explains much of this. I don't know who that is, but I'll take your word for it there. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for coming by. Always great to speak with you. Sorry, I did a lot of shouting to get today. Hope I didn't blow out the speakers too bad. If it's your first time here on YouTube, you need to subscribe, click the bell notifications. YouTube's really, been saying it's going to stop crushing the right wing with algorithms. I'm doubtful, so please go ahead and make sure to still sign up and everything so that you can see when we go live. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, make sure to subscribe to our MacIntyre show on your favorite podcast platform. And when you do, leave a rating or review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And as always, I will talk to you next time.